Hello everybody, it's Ryan with the Farm2Table Direct Show. Again, we are here at Okie Homestead Expo 2025, Mays County Fairground in Pryor, Oklahoma, here on the mobile Farm2Table Direct Show set. And this guy over here to my left is Mr. Zach Bauer with an American Homestead. We've spoke with Zach before, and many of y'all know who he is. We're just honored to be able to have him here. And, Zach is just like, he lives the homestead life completely and off-grid at that, and, the whole lifestyle of self-reliance and independence and that type of thing. But he also happens to be nice enough to travel around and tell people how to do it after his years of experience.
I try my best.
Anyway, Zach, most people don't realize how dependent they are on the grocery store.
Yeah.
What happens when the store shelves go empty?
Listen, I think going back to what you just said, like, people don't realize. It takes sometimes a step back. You have to step back and take a look at yourself and inventory. Okay, where am I getting my food? Where am I doing all these things at? And then you realize, oh my gosh, I really am dependent on these systems. And so that if the stores do go empty or if they do close down, you realize you're going to be in a world of hurt. And so what we have tried to do over the years is try to move closer to a scale of having more of these things made on our own homestead. Right. Being a producer. And I try to tell people, you need to be a producer. Produce things on your own. Do some of these things for yourself that your great-grandparents would have done for themselves. They would recognize these things, so let's do those things.
Right. And I've actually heard you mention, food that your great-grandparents would recognize as food, and not the stuff.
Right. Exactly.
Obviously, things that have happened in the last few years have kind of opened a lot of eyes and kind of moved things. But somebody who's maybe not, or they're just hanging out on the fence, but why should they start thinking about where that food and their dependency on that supply chain, and why should they do it now?
Well, the biggest reason, in my opinion, is the corruption of it. So a lot of the things that you think are food really aren't anymore.
Right.
We don't live in the day and age where I grew up in, where restaurants actually made food in the back of the restaurant. Today, it all comes off the same Cisco truck or a similar truck.
Right.
Comes out of plastic and cardboard containers, gets thrown into a pot and heated up. There's no chefs back there making amazing dishes from scratch. That doesn't happen anymore in most restaurants. You have to, and if you go to a restaurant like that, it's going to cost an arm and a leg. So it's the corruption of the food is my main thing. What you're eating isn't food anymore. It's full of a bunch of flavored chemicals that's going to make you addicted so that you come back, like an addict to that food source.
Right. And we've kind of experienced that. We've talked about the addictive nature of the things that are in there ourselves. And, that is so much of that supply chain, and where it's all supplied, like you said, by a handful of people.
Right.
And so how do we, somebody's never considered breaking free from that. What's a small practical step they can start taking right off the bat?
The easiest thing anyone can do to get started in something like this is so simple. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Just start cooking from home.
Okay.
Just start cooking. Learn how to take raw ingredients and use those to make an amazing meal. Following recipes. Because the reality is that if I told you just go into a homestead, get a garden and grow all these things, if you don't know what to do with these things that you're growing or the animals that you're raising, what good is it? You're going to get frustrated, and you're just going to maybe save them and never use them, and you're still going to go back to that drive-through that you're addicted to.
Right.
So learn to cook from home is my very first thing I tell people to get started.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. I've never, when I've asked other people, I've never gotten that answer.
That's the basic answer.
Right.
Because people don't do it today. I walk into people. You see these houses with these amazing kitchens out there.
Right.
Beautiful kitchens. They don't use them. You walk into you look in their refrigerator, they have a cardboard box of a pizza they ordered last night. They don't use their kitchens.
Right. And I can relate that as somebody who's in the middle of rebuilding his kitchen and can't use it.
It's true. It really is true.
And that's a great tip. Self-reliance isn't about going off grid, maybe necessarily for everybody. I know y'all have.
You don't have to, but we do, yeah.
And so just one small change does make that difference. And we tell people just make a step.
Right.
What's some beginner-friendly steps as far as if they want to source locally their food or they want to grow for themselves? What's kind of a beginner basic?
You got to do that research. You got to put that in that footwork of looking up farmers and other people who grow these things, making those network connections, and then saying, hey, listen, can I buy your product, buy your raw dairy, or buy your vegetables, or buy your meat that you sell, and then become a customer, because what you're doing is now you're participating in that market, and that's going to ensure that that producer keeps producing in order to fulfill those needs that you now have. And so that's a great way to participate in that a new system, the system outside the system.
Right.
And then at some point, you can be part of that system. You can be part of that producing system where you're growing some of these things and maybe even selling them to other people, or sharing them with other people, or just using them yourself, being a consumer of the things that you produce on your own.
Okay, and I like that, especially, and which Keith and I have talked about this, is, what you were talking about, we call it parallel economy.
Right.
Operating outside of that other system.
It's a mindset that you have to change. And I know it takes a little bit of time to get there, but it's a change of mindset to actually get out there and just start doing it.
Okay. And, one of the common misconceptions with being self-reliant or being off-grid or being in a homesteader is that you got to do this by yourself.
Yeah. You can do it with other people, but you got to do it.
Right.
I
mean, well, like, for example, like events like this and others that you go to, how important are these kind of events to that mindset change and building that community?
It's fantastic because you get to come out to a place like this and see the crowds and all of the vendors and all of the speakers, and you're like, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
There are other people who do this too and have a desire to do it. And so that really can be a confidence booster, an encouragement to you to keep doing what you're doing. And then you're learning on top of all it, because you're getting the experiences of all the other people that are out there, and you're hearing about the struggles that they have had and the challenges they've had, and then the successes that they've had. And then you apply that back on your own homestead, in your own life, in your own journey, in your own adventure, and so that it makes your job easier. And that's the way people used to always do these things. They'd share these things in a community, and that's kind of what you see here, is a really nice community.
Right. We talk about the successes and the failures, because I've had both.
Yeah.
And I know
that's how you learn.
Right. And I've seen. Do you still have your aquaponics big system that you had?
Well, again, that's how you learn. No, I don't. For us, because we're off grid,
right.
And aquaponics, let me just say this: it does work. There are people who have done this, and we have done it, and it produces amazing food, high quality food, and it does. You can succeed with it. But for us, as an off grid homestead, it was a little bit too hard because of the water evaporation. We ran into a certain amount of challenges, and we decided, okay, we're going to put that on the back burner and not do that anymore, and find other ways that were more low maintenance for off-grid living that we can produce our food from.
Okay, all right.
But it does work.
Right. Well, yeah, and we've got friends that have they build aquaponic systems and stuff like that. But I had seen yours, and that was like, wow.
It was probably one at the time. It was probably one of the biggest ones in the state, if not in the country, that was off grid.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was so and you now grow other ways. There's something satisfying when it's what you grew, and it tastes a little better.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because you go buy a tomato in the store in January,
right,
that was grown in Brazil.
Okay.
And it was shipped in.
Right.
And you compare that to a tomato you grew in your garden yourself, out of your soil, that you have nurtured and grown that soil, because it takes a lot to build a soil up to be productive and fertile. And there's no comparison. There's no comparison between those two tomatoes.
Nothing, not at all. In fact, it's when I get one, when I do grow, and in fact, I've got to get my garden planted. When we grow, it's hard for me not to just pick it up right there and eat it instead of taking it in the house and and using it.
Well, I grow enough that I can do that, so I have enough.
There you go. Some people want the little step, but then there's those people out there that have already kind of been going for a while. What's a big step or a big leap? What's one that can make a real impact that somebody that's already kind of in the journey and they're wanting to kind of like, okay, I'm ready to make a big change?
Yeah, realize that you're going to have those failures. Realize you're going to have those challenges. Be sure you have a spouse that is on board with you,
right,
with your goal and your vision of this, what you're trying to do. That's going to save a lot of trouble. But also have the answer for when someone asks you why you're doing this. So they say, why would you grow all these things? It's all at the store. Why? Have an answer and be passionate about that. Because if you don't really have an answer and you're not passionate about what you're doing, it's really easy to get discouraged and then turn your back on it.
Well, that's great, because that's a big thing, is knowing your why.
Yeah,
and
knowing your why.
What's that? So looking back, I mean, you've had this quite a few years now. You've been on this journey. What do you think was like the single biggest decision you made in becoming more self-reliant and heading down this road?
Oh, I don't know if there's like a single biggest decision other than just go ahead and doing it and starting it.
Right.
That would probably be the biggest, because at some point you have to take that first step.
Right.
And taking that first step would probably be the biggest thing. Just doing it. Because I see some people and they get stuck in a lingo or just in the middle of nowhere. They don't know where to begin or where to start, and they just sit there forever and never get started and actually just do it.
I can feel that.
Yeah, well, but that's why, and they get stuck there. So I tell people, just do it. Just get started doing it, even if it's on the smallest scale. Now you're doing it, and now you can build on that experience, whether it's success or failure, and then keep going. Right. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's I was living in town at the time, so I was doing small container gardening.
That's something.
It's something, and like you said, failures. Right. But what I learned, my problem was, honestly, at the end of the day, was overwatering and then underwatering, and it was just it was killing the. It didn't stand a chance.
But it takes time to learn that happy medium,
right?
And only experience will give you that,
right? And so I've had a couple of years. So now I'm out in the country. I've moved on to some acreage, and so it's like I still need the container because just where I'm going to do it, but I want to go bigger. Yeah. So it's like now I'm looking at raised bed kind of thing and stuff. So, but yeah, it's like I've been like, okay, watering. I've got to get that. If I can get that figured out, I'm a happy guy.
Water is always your most important thing on a homestead, no matter what. Everything else is important too, can be important, but water is always the top.
Right, and I think that's super big. Is how are you going to do this? And you just being off grid, you've really got to kind of have a different approach to the water.
Absolutely.
Now I talked to you before the show when we were over here, kind of setting up about our self-reliance scale. Mm-hmm. Now those that have watched our show, they've heard us talk about this. That 0 is everything is cooked for you, everything's fast food, everything is you don't cook nothing.
Yeah.
All the way up to and you don't grow nothing, and you don't do anything. Then it slides over to mostly convenience, and then half and half, mostly self-produced, and then 100% self-produced. And then also, like I said, 100% from big box store all the way to 100% local. Mm-hmm. Now, you're probably further right than most.
You almost have to be when you're doing what I'm doing.
Right, exactly. So, how important is it for people to move off of that zero dependency of 100% dependency on everybody else?
The more you move over in that scale, the less it's going to hurt if any of those things are ever turned off on you.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That does.
So, but again, even me, I'm not 100% at those far end of the right side of that scale.
Right.
I mean, I have a tractor. Right. And I still need hydraulic oil for that tractor. Right. Motor oil for that tractor. I have to buy that at the big box store, so you can't say I'm 100% off the big box stores, even though I try to not use it as much as I need to. I still have to use those things. And even pioneers back in the day, they had the general stores where they would barter and trade and bring things in.
Right. And particularly kind of moving, food. You grow and raise the majority of your food.
A lot of it, for sure. And definitely majority.
Right. So, and that's what I say,
Or we utilize people who are in our area and what they grow and then use as food.
Well, so I say that comes into that bartering, and that comes into that community system, and we have to have, because I know, we learned a few years ago just how quickly them stores empty out and how, the don't have what you need all of a sudden. And so that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, man, 3 days if everything is good. Yeah. Well, you kind of live. We're not far apart as far as geographically. Right. Let a tornado or a snowstorm be coming and see how fast that store empties.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. You're right. Exactly right.
So again, as you referenced, if things happen, you're not as affected. So guys, you kind of heard it there from somebody who's living off grid, who's been doing this. Little keys, little steps that we can go to move a little further right to self-reliance. but also participating in the community and being a part of that. Zach, you know things I know you've had a lot of changes over the last few years. What's things looking forward to going in American Homestead?
Well, we got a lot of things going on right now. We're really pushing vegetable fermentation.
Right.
The Perfect Pickler brand. We've taken over that brand.
Okay.
You can find it at perfectpickler.com. And vegetable fermentation, I think, is something that's very important, especially for people who are into homesteading. They're getting into fermentation because they realize that people 100 years ago, 200 years ago, most of the foods they ate were fermented.
Right.
I mean, the sourdough was all fermented before it was baked. You had the vegetables that you fermented in order to keep it for long-term storage over the wintertime.
Right.
You had all your dairy products, which were fermented. Sour cream was soured because you left it out on a counter. Right. All of your alcohol was fermented before it was either distilled or just bottled.
Right.
And so it's like fermentation played a huge cured meat, another example of fermentation. All these things were fermented, and it gave us a really healthy gut biome that we are missing today because we're so dependent on different medicines and antibiotics and things like that. And so people are trying to restore that microbiome in their gut, and they're realizing this is a source of a lot of my health problems.
Right.
And when you get into homesteading and you grow your garden and you raise your meat and you maybe have a cow where you can get dairy from, you can do these things that most people, you can't even buy in the store legally because they're not legally allowed to sell them in the store because
right.
of the probiotics, the bacteria
right.
that those things have in them. They're not real, they're not even real.
Right.
So it's like when you get to that homesteading level, you realize there's a whole new world of things I can do. And that's why we're pushing that right now. We're getting into that for the future of American Homestead.
Okay. Well, I had seen that on your, and in fact, I caught your most recent video about fermentation.
Yeah.
And so gave me some content to
yeah,
read.
there you go.
But anyway, so yeah, that's a good thing going there. Now, and like I said, you have teamed it. Now, that's perfectpickler.com.
Perfectpickler.com.
And now there's a seed company that you work with as well.
Yeah, ClearwaterValleyFarms.com.
Okay.
Now that's a company up in Idaho, and they're producing seed packs for all different parts of the United States. No matter where you are, they have seed packs that will probably grow in your region. And if you have questions, you can always call them. And I don't get any kickbacks or anything. I'm not trying to do monetary
right.
incentives for that. But it's a good family-based company. Okay, and that company, they do produce for us a seed packet for our homestead that's for the Ozarks, and it's also a seed packet they produce that's based on fermentation. So there's vegetables in that seed packet that are going to ferment fantastic.
Okay, that's awesome. So that is
ClearwaterValleyFarms.com.
ClearwaterValleyFarms.com.
Yeah.
I knew I'd mess that up. That's why I asked you. Anyway, so folks, there's a couple of resources that you can check out.
Absolutely.
And particularly, say the Pickler one again.
PerfectPickler.com.
Perfect Pickler.
Yeah.
Check that one out. That one supports Zach there. That's the way you can
That's a home-based business right on our homestead.
Right. So you can find Zach on AmericanHomestead.com.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I know you're still out on the other socials a little bit.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube, obviously, and then I'm also on X. So follow me on X.
Yeah. And so a lot of information besides food that Zach puts out. So definitely want to check him out there and, see what's going on in his world, get some stuff. He puts out great videos, great content. Zach, we appreciate you taking the time to sit with us.
It's great coming out here today. I love it.
Absolutely. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you again. I know we're going to be in Ozarks in September as well. So
it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. And so, folks, there it is, just a little bit of information that you can take with you coming from another one of the many experts that we find here in the homesteading community. Now, we say something at the end of everything. We always say, prepare for the unexpected and keep it local.
Absolutely.
So that's how we're going to sign
great
this.
Advice.
Right. All right, everybody, this is Ryan, the Farm2Table Direct Show. I'm here with Zach Bauer from An American Homestead. And as we say at the end of every broadcast, every show, prepare for the unexpected and keep it local.